Guys, what's up? Welcome to the Airpreneur YouTube channel, where all we do is talk about how you can achieve financial freedom leveraging Airbnb without having to buy property. So that's either through arbitrage or co-hosting. And in this video, what I want to talk about is Airbnb arbitrage and co-hosting, are they still worth it in 2025? Are they still lucrative? And this is not only a good question, but a valid question, because the truth is the Airbnb game has changed drastically over the last several years. What's worked 2-3 years ago does not work anymore. So this is a good question. Now, just as a total disclaimer, as somebody who runs a large community of folks who do nothing but Airbnb arbitrage and co-hosting at scale, of course I'm going to be biased, and of course I'm going to say that this is still a valid model, right? Because this is actively what I'm doing. This is actively what hundreds of people in our community are doing. And like I'm still doing it to this day. Like I have a deal we're launching next month, and I have a 12 unit deal that we just launched 2-3 months ago. So of course I'm going to be a little bit biased in this, but if you're watching this because you're considering this as a potential vehicle for you, then at least I can give you insight as someone who's guided hundreds of people into doing this over the last several years, okay? The main topics I want to discuss today are Airbnb financials, right? The state of regulations, right? The state of the competition and saturation, and then finally, the false expectations that many other Airbnb gurus out there are setting, right? Because I've had the opportunity to sit in on many other Airbnb gurus, like webinars and things like that, and I was just baffled at the numbers they were giving out to people and promising them like a false dream and like snake oil. Like it's really deceptive, and I'm not one to talk badly about my competition out of professionalism, but I also think you should not directly mislead and lie to people. It's just a shitty thing to do, right? So first, let's talk about Airbnb financials. So Airbnb has actually made this data completely public. It's on their website. Their Q1 2025 financial report states that they have a 6% increase year over year in revenue, and they've toppled I don't know how many some billions of dollars, right? So the moral of the story is they're not doing bad. And on top of that, if you account for the leap year dates and holidays and things like that, they actually would have been up 11% year over year in revenue. So Airbnb is really not going anywhere. It's the dominant short-term rental platform. You might have seen recently that they have launched a whole new plethora of features to incorporate small businesses and experiences and things like that for guests. So Airbnb is really not going anywhere. And ultimately, I think this is a great sign for those who are leveraging Airbnb to make money. Right now, me and my community and my team and my business partner, we all utilize what's known as Airbnb arbitrage and co-hosting. This means I don't buy properties, I just rent them because it's way more scalable, furnish them, list them on Airbnb, just collect a profit, right? So, most of my units will cash flow anywhere from like 1 to 5K per month each. Same with my students in our community. And I see this as a very valid way to generate a high cash flow without having to buy property and take on all that risk, right? Like I don't need to shell out $100,000. I could just leverage 0% interest credit cards, buy furniture, and get rolling, right? Now, what the Airbnb data and revenue report means for me is that this platform is not going anywhere. I see that they're still continuing to innovate. Now, here's the thing, guys, is if in 5 to 10 years from now, Airbnb suddenly gets overtaken by something, I think it would be naive to think that Airbnb is going to be the only player in the game. I'm not really worried about that, because good Airbnb operators will cross-list their listings on multiple platforms. Like I get a vast majority of my bookings from Airbnb, but I also get bookings from VRBO, from Booking.com, from a bunch of other platforms because I run them the right way, right? So my point is this: if you're leveraging arbitrage and you at least want to protect yourself from a 5 to 10 year timeline to still make a lot of cash flow, I don't see that as being a problem, because then the question becomes, okay, if Airbnb fails, am I still going to be able to make money? Is short-term rentals, are they still going to be valid? And that's where I will always say yes, because you're competing with hotels. And at the end of the day, a hotel is a completely different experience. And the whole reason people are booking Airbnbs are because they offer an experience that a hotel does not. Make sense? So for example, if you just think about this for a second. If you go to travel to another city and you're traveling with a family of 5, it's either you have to get 3 hotel rooms, which A, is expensive, and B, sucks, like it's just not fun, or you can get a house, right? So my point is, short-term rentals will always have a place because there will always be people out there like myself who travel and do not want a hotel. I hate hotels. I despise hotels. And I'm sure many of you guys watching do as well. And that's why you like this model. So I don't think short-term rentals is going anywhere. I do think that Airbnb will continue to be the dominant platform because they're so user-friendly and they have such a good like user interface and system. But at some point, 5-10 years from now, could there be another player out there? I'm sure. That's not going to affect me or people that actually run their Airbnbs and short-term rentals, arbitrage co-hosting the right way, right? Now that might impact co-hosting a little bit, but that's also 5-10 years down the line. So that's the first thing. But then the question becomes, okay, what is the state of regulations? Okay. So it's no surprise a lot of major cities are enforcing more regulations for short-term rentals. Now, do I see this as a bad thing from somebody who's utilizing arbitrage and co-hosting? Kind of. Right? I don't love the fact that more cities are being regulated, but there are a couple of silver linings to this. First off is the government's never going to regulate something that isn't here to stay, right? So that means to me that like, it's kind of like crypto and all that other stuff. It's like, it's regulated because it is a such widely used platform and they want people to do it safely, right? They want people to do it with less, risk on the line for them. So I don't see regulations per se as a bad thing as long as you're following the rules. Now, regulations actually are harder if you are trying to do arbitrage, not so much co-hosting and not so much buying a property, because most regulations in most cities have to do with the owner themselves listing the property or being like owner occupied or their primary residence or whatever. And that doesn't really affect if you're purchasing properties. That doesn't really affect if you're co-hosting because you could still have the owner as the main host and you're the co-host. But if you're arbitraging, meaning I'm renting the property and subletting, that could affect me. So that means two things for me. A, I'm not going to target those cities. I'm going to target the cities immediately outside those cities and still get a piece of that pie, right? Or B, it means that I'm just going to arbitrage the properties and then likely list myself as the co-host. So I'm still operating legally. The host is still listing the listing per se, but I'm just kind of utilizing the platform in a way that allows me to do it legally. Now, this is not legal advice, of course, and this does not account for the changing landscape of things, but the government doesn't move quickly, right? So I'm going to see these regulations from a mile away, and I'm going to operate and prioritize cities that have the least amount of regulations, right? Like I'm not going to target a city that I know already hates short-term rentals because then I already know 2-3 years down the line, it's probably not going to work out. But there are so many, guys, there's 19,000 cities in the US. There are so many cities that allow short-term rentals. I would basically just avoid a lot of the major cities that don't favor short-term rentals if you're doing arbitrage. But I mean, I personally operate in 4, 5, 6 different cities with arbitrage. A lot of my students are all over the country successfully in states and areas you would never imagine being profitable. But just because we find cities that are short-term rental friendly and operate within the legal boundaries. So I'm never suggesting trying to fly under the radar with regulations and laws. I am always suggesting following the rules, and I would just pick an area that doesn't make your life hell. That's pretty much all I've got on the regulation side. I just don't pick those cities, is the moral of the story. Now, let's talk saturation. This is a good topic because it's very important. The game has changed for Airbnb. The game has changed a lot, which is the days are gone of me just like taking some photos with my iPhone, listing any old property on Airbnb and making a fortune, right? It just doesn't work like that anymore. Now, I, as an operator and me and my students, my community, all that stuff, I love that because that means that we now have to find quality properties and separate ourselves from the competition, meaning now we have a more sustainable business. So I only think this is a bad thing if you half-ass your listings and your projects and your business, right? I only think this is a bad thing if you don't know how to find quality rentals. And where I see a lot of people make mistakes getting into the world of Airbnb is they just try to list any property. They take the first deal that comes their way without doing the proper analysis and financial analysis and justification, and then it doesn't make money. And then they're like, Airbnb sucks. Well, yeah, it's gonna suck if you don't do the work to actually find the right property. And if you don't know how to do that work, then it's even more of a problem, right? So I'm actually glad this is happening because it's weeding out a lot of the people that aren't doing this professionally and don't have the proper guidance from experienced people that are doing this, So, and that's just the reality of it, is it's like, here's a question you can ask yourself just to prove the concept. Open up the Airbnb app in your hometown. You're going to see two things. One, you're going to see properties there that are clearly crushing it. Lots of reviews. They're booked for a very expensive rate every single night, and the property is beautiful, right? So that already eliminates the whole I don't think I can succeed where I live thing. There's somebody there. There's somebody there doing it. We should probably just figure out what they're doing and copy them, right? But then if you keep scrolling, you're going to notice what? There's a lot of listings that suck. And funny thing is some of them are still doing well. Some of them are still making a ton of money, but the listings are crap. The photos are bad. The interior design's bad. The management is bad. The reviews are bad, but they're still making money. Now, why is that? It's because there's even more operators in that market that are not good, right? So my point is, all you have to do is a little bit of work to separate yourself from the competition, and there is a great opportunity for you to make money in this space. I showed an example to my community recently. There's a property in Philadelphia, for example, that's doing $125,000 a year, and the listing is garbage. Photos are terrible, interior design, garbage, but they're crushing it just because it's in the right area and they've got the right amenities in that property. Could you imagine if somebody else took over that property and made it 10 times better? They'd be making $180K a year. Hence, you and me, people that actually care, right? So I guess the last thing I wanted to touch on were the false expectations that I see out there. And this really grinds my gears because as somebody that has, worked with, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of individuals to land profitable Airbnbs, I've had to really make sure that I was very realistic and upfront about the expectations of this business model. And then I jump on a webinar with some of these gurus out there just to see what they're saying. And they're making all these wild claims about you can make every single Airbnb arbitrage property makes $7K a month in cash flow. Or because you have a 700 credit score, you can get $200,000 in 0% interest funding. And guys, these are just flat out lies, right? Have I seen students in my community get arbitrage properties that cash flow 5K a month or more? Of course, but it's very few and far between. Those really, really high revenue properties are not easy to come by. Now, the realistic average for somebody who's just starting out in arbitrage, your first few deals, they're considered good in my mind if they're cash flowing 1 to 3K per month, right? But I'm not going to sell you this dream that every property you arbitrage is going to make 8K a month in cash flow. That's insane. And I've seen guys blatantly just say that up front. Look at this arbitrage deal. This is potentially going to make you 7K a month. And their calculations are way off. They're using the Airbnb calendar to calculate their revenue predictions, which is insane because the rates change every single night and every single month. So that's an awful way to predict revenue. But my point is, it's so it's so disingenuous to sell you that is actually how this works. The reality is this: a good arbitrage deal, anybody around the country can find an arbitrage deal, likely within an hour or two of you, that'll cash flow 1 to 3K per month. That is the bare minimum that we want to see. And sometimes it'll take a few deals that you have to go through that are bad in order to find that one. So the problem that my students have, for example, are not getting landlords to say yes. It's going through 2 or 3 properties and saying, that doesn't meet my financial requirements, and then saying no, right? So just like with any business model, guys, I think if you genuinely want to make it work and you want to make something substantial, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of work, and it's going to take some a moment of discouragement where it's this isn't as easy as I thought it would be. But ultimately, when you come out on the other side, really great things can happen. I love this business model because you can just grow and grow and grow and grow. And when you build these relationships with landlords and you work with one landlord one time and you make them happy, they're going to hand you 4 or 5 more properties, right? My multi-million-dollar portfolio has come from the same 4, 5, 6 landlords that have just handed me more deals. So in a nutshell, if I could just summarize this whole video, I don't think arbitrage is going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think co-hosting is going anywhere anytime soon. As a matter of fact, co-hosting is way easier on the regulation and legal side because you still have the owner listing the property. I think Airbnb revenue still sky high. They're still growing as a company. They're kind of still in their infancy. And short-term rentals as a whole is not going anywhere. I think that regulations are getting more enforced in cities that already hate short-term rentals, so don't operate in those cities. And I think that the competition sucks. I think the competition is really bad because they didn't come into this with the proper expectations or guidance or education, which leaves opportunity for folks like you and me. So I'm going to go ahead, keep growing my portfolio. If you guys would like help growing your portfolio, I've got 2 options for you. The first is you can click the link in the description to join our school community. It is a free A to Z step-by-step Airbnb course to land your first property. It's kind of like our starter kit type thing. But if you'd actually like to just fast track your path to 5 to 10K per month with an Airbnb arbitrage business, there's also going to be another link in the description to book a call directly with the Airpreneur team to be considered to be part of our one-on-one mentorship community. So go ahead and click that if you'd like to do it. Otherwise, guys, I will see you in a week. Peace.